GM, everyone. Looks like we're still gonna have some people rolling in here, so we're gonna wait a minute or two before getting started. And I'd like to do a little intro and some house rules, and then growth globalization retro doc that I just posted inside the general channel. Feel free to jump into it. I'm going to walk us through it. We're going to be filling out each of the sections and talking about our experience here. So everyone should have the ability to edit and comment in there and add things to it. Let me know if you don't. I will also share my screen so we can have people who just want to see what's going on view it. So let me click some buttons real quick. All right. Looks like I've got pretty good representation from marketing and growth and globalization. Is there anyone in particular, kind of reaching out to everyone now, that they see not on here that we need to reach out to make sure they're here for this meeting?
Not that I can see.
All right.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think everybody's here. I'll ping Hunt because he's here, and I just can't see him.
Yeah, I do not see Hunt, and I think he should probably be involved in this one. Thank you for everyone who's representing the other work streams coming here too. I'm glad to have you be a part of this.
Guys, I think somebody is still stuck in the meeting on top of the ShapeShift channel. I saw a couple of people there.
Will someone go run up onto the stage and let them know we're down here?
Yeah, I can do that real quick.
Thank you.
Yeah, Hunt's coming. He just had to grab a different mic. His mic's not working.
Oh, sure. Definitely want to make sure he can chat. Cool. There, now we're getting a bit of an audience. Just had to schedule it and start at 5 minutes after the scheduled time.
All right, I think we got everybody.
Cool. All right. So welcome to the Marketing Growth and Globalization Retro. This is a meeting that I put together after seeing some different language about two separate work streams forming with very similar kind of responsibilities, and the DAO passing a previous work stream that the community didn't really get a full insight into why we decided to split off into two, or some sort of communication around why what was previously proposed is no longer going to be working and going forward. So I think that there's lots of circumstances surrounding all of these situations that we have here, that maybe some of them happened in separate closed meetings, and it would be good to get the community's eyes on these things. So in order to talk about all of these things, I've got a framework of a retro that I'd like us to go through, and hopefully have some collaborative action items to come out of it. So some ground rules that I wanted to go over with before we get started. First and foremost, this is a safe space. We're not here to assign any blame. We're here to find a solution. And everyone who's on this call right now, is not here committed to being right, but is here committed to being open, so we can hear about how we can improve on these situations. So I would love if everyone could either nod along silently or give a thumbs up or an affirmation that we are all here to commit to being open, more so than committing to being right. Thank you for all silently nodding along with me. And the way that we're going to structure this is that it's going to allow discussion, but it's also going to direct us to action items that we can draw with what we learned from here. Perhaps some of these action items are already in motion, or some of these lessons that we will have being learned are already in motion, but perhaps we're going to discover some new insights out of this discussion with everyone that we can assign new action items to and move forward. So the way that this is going to be structured is we have a timeline here on this sheet, and I've put in a couple of big mile markers with dates there beforehand, but I know that there's a whole bunch more information that could be added to this. So we will spend the first 15 to 20 minutes filling out this. Everyone is able to add bullet points here. And we just kind of want to go chronologically through the circumstances with which we're talking about. So big milestones and things that could be added are when people show up into the DAO and start working, or maybe when a miscommunication or a conflict arises, or a deadline is hit, or a deadline is missed, things like that. Any sort of relevant pieces that we would like to talk about in some of the later sections as well. So after we fill out this timeline for 15 to 20 minutes, we'll have Lo-Fi Girl playing some music so everyone can have some thoughtful time to fill this stuff out. I will then kick it over to the next section where we are going to celebrate wins and discuss improvements. And this again will be something that people can add and type in things. And this is things that we did well, things that we could improve upon. Maybe upon looking at the timeline, something strikes your memory as like, oh, we did that really well. Or else it can say like, oh, that was something we could have handled differently. If you see something on this list when we get to this section that you agree with, you can definitely add a plus sign next to it to say, I was going to write that too, but someone beat me to it. So that gives us a little bit of a way to gauge how much some of these things are in priority when we go to a later discussion. If we need to add more rows to this because there's not enough there, you can just select the little plus sign on the left of the grid to insert one row below, so we can keep adding to that if we go beyond that. Similarly with the buttons in the timeline, you can add more of those if we need to add more spaces before or after any of those things. Once we filled out both of those, we're going to have a little conversation about these wins and improvements. I will try and lead it with the ones that have the most pluses first, because those will be the highest priority. Or else we can just go down the list, depending on how it kind of shakes out and what people care about when we put them there. And we will have time to talk about each of these individual ones. And after 3 to 5 minutes, or I guess probably 5 minutes, I'm going to step in if we've got a long conversation and ask for a thumbs up if we should keep going, or a thumbs down if we've kind of beat the horse as dead as we need to here and we need to move on to the next subject. And we will go through all of the things that we have written down and what went well and what could be improved upon. And hopefully from that discussion, we will determine and fill out these next sections here about if there were root causes. The root cause is kind of a harsher word here, because normally retros are designed around, hey, we had a big prod issue emergency that broke something, and the root cause of it was this merge. So here that root cause might be changed to something different, more so what are the contributing factors. We might just do contributing factors and root cause. This feels a little maybe out of place for a full retro of a work stream, but we want to understand the contributing factors about maybe this is the decision-making process as to what we want to go to in the future. And then we will have some action items where I hope to assign people that are on this call with action items to lead us into being as successful as we can with the lessons or plans that we've learned and the new development of 2 work streams or some other solve that we come up with here on this call. So are there any questions so far about this call, this process, what we're going to be doing for the next hour to 80 minutes?
Yeah, my only question is around like the bullet point timeline stuff. How detailed do you want, and what are we primarily adding to this timeline that isn't just dates?
Yeah, good question. I think this is anything that's going to be pertinent to this conversation around causes for the decision that we had in potentially having this split between two work streams. So important things would be when contributors show up, when big milestones of work get accomplished. If there are any disagreements that happen, we don't need to get into.
Hey, Tyler, I
Yeah.
sort of want to like inject here and like adjust the narrative a little bit, because like I was the one that proposed that this quote unquote split happens, and that really didn't happen until like 2 weeks ago, maybe something like that, when LPX contacted me. So like trying to like define like the split on like past actions doesn't necessarily like make sense to me, because like the choice that I made and like the proposal that I made like to do this was like not based off that definitively. So just putting that out there.
Okay. I definitely appreciate that there's probably some stuff that we'll probably focus on more in the later timeline than the earlier timeline. And maybe we don't need to spend a whole bunch of time on the earlier stages of this. But I do think that there's probably some insight to be gained around friction points and or lack of community transparency in the decision-making process for some of these things that, at least in my mind as an ops person for this DAO, would appreciate at least some form of documentation and communication around. I don't know if other people are on the same page, and if I'm
I agree.
sheep.
For sure. I mean, there's like contributors that people probably don't even know are like contributing to the DAO. So yeah, I definitely agree we should do this, but I just wanted to like make it known that like when I like when LPX came to me and like asked me to like help him take ownership over like globalization and LATAM, it wasn't like a unilateral like decision like based on like marketing and growth at all. It was really more of like global. But yeah.
I totally hear that. I also see that there was a proposed work stream that had marketing and growth in one umbrella that, without any sort of communication or sort of in the renewal process, I guess from my mind in reading the proposals as they were passed, I would assume that if growth was going to split out, it would have some communication about why before just splitting out. But I guess we're getting a little beside the point. We should definitely get into it. Is there anything anyone else wants to add beforehand, before we start doing timeline stuff and bring Lo-Fi Girl back in here?
Yeah, sorry, real quick, because I think the contextual stuff is important here too, is that we talked about this during the marketing call actually yesterday, that we should also frame that this isn't necessarily just quote unquote breaking growth out. It really comes down to just a name at the end of the day. We couldn't put, globalization, branding, promotions, and partnerships at Workstream. Like that title just sounds insane. So that was part of it, is that this overall leads to growth. That was kind of the name of it. But yeah, I mean, we are covering some of the growth stuff. I just want to, contextualize that for everybody so they have a frame of reference a little bit, that this isn't necessarily, marketing is still going to be working towards growth under, Pete's proposed forum. We should definitely keep that in mind.
Totally. Cool. Anyone else before we start adding stuff in? Or if you don't have anything to say, feel free to start adding right now.
I just wanted to say, I think everyone probably on the call already knows, but maybe some of the community members might not. I think for the most part, and I could be wrong, the stage chat is kind of like the location where any of the conversation outside of this forum would go, like for maybe like the thumbs up and stuff like that for people watching, versus the general chat. I know it might be split, but I could be wrong. I just wanted to point that out just in case some members might not be following along in the right place.
Thank you, never was. I certainly wasn't looking at the stage chat until now, so appreciate that. All right. So for the next, it is now 11:15. So at 11:30, we will check back in with the timeline, unless I see that no one's adding more things. Can someone slide Lo-Fi Girl back in here? All right, we're getting really close to that 15-minute mark. Do we need another 5 minutes to keep adding some information here? I still see people talking or typing. All right, yeah, we'll go until 11:35. Well, fam, we're actually at a minute past what I said we were going to go to here, but I do see that in this stage chat, there was a mention of the fact that there were quite a few meetings to go over some of the conflicts that may have arisen and maybe some resolutions that are already in place or some agreements to better resolve some of these issues. My hope is that this would be a meeting in which those things could be aired out publicly and transparently. And if they don't make it into this timeline, that is okay. But I would love for those issues to show up inside the what we did well and what we could do better part of that. So, for the sake of the whole DAO being on the same page as the people who are making the decisions for the DAO, we can all align ourselves together. Does anyone else need another minute or two for the timeline before we start going through this? All right, I'll take that as we're good to go here. Walking through this timeline, the first thing we have on here is the forum post for Globalization Workstream being funded on August 5th. And around that time and shortly after, it was received awesome support and feedback from the DAO. And looks like LPX is saying that as an outsider, he wasn't sure what to expect, but that maybe there was some surprise there from the support and feedback he got for his work stream. Then a little bit later, on August 19th, there's a forum post created about funding the marketing and growth work stream. And looks like some flavor context here is that it's intended to give all DAO members a place to propose marketing bounties and be compensated for doing so while still maintaining marketing capabilities for the DAO. A nice transition from maybe our previous centralized marketing and growth work stream to more DAO-minded stuff. Feedback was received to define goals and the KPIs to meet, which was then incorporated into the work stream proposal. And that was before it ended up passing. The 25th, globalization passes in boardroom. And then on 9/3, Toasty pitches himself for a role inside marketing and growth work stream. So that went through some revamping before it went up to proposal. Internationalization and growth goal, and I think that's what ING stands for. I'm not sure. Maybe there's something else I'm missing there, but yeah, internationalization and globalization begins as a brand new work stream with no precedents or procedures, no viable translation platform, no global language leaders, and being the first work stream to trudge through everything together. So thank you, LPX, for being the first DAO guinea pig there and that. LPX had tons of time at this point, worked crazy hours for the DAO for the first few months. Thank you for putting in that hard work and DAOing it. September 15th, marketing and growth passes in boardroom. This is with the addition of Toasty into that, as well as responding to all the feedback about KPIs and changes that were in the initial forum and ideation part of this proposal. Work had already started before the work stream was passed, and work continued on afterwards. So marketing was well on their way to doing things and DAOing it before they ever got the thumbs up of approval to do so. On October 12th, Ron started streaming for the marketing and growth bounty. Thank you, Ron, for DAOing that. And around this time, LPX begins to realize that the workload from their day job was getting too much, and they still tried to truck through it. September through October 15th. So looks like this started back in September, but was going for 3 months or 2 months. Crypto Royale was funded for 3 gaming competitions, and we were listed as a sponsor for cross-community promotion with Crypto Royale. I know that one we definitely have to thank Hunt for. I'm pretty sure he was 100% responsible for jumping in there and doing that cross-community so early on. And I think there's some people that Hunt ended up pulling out of that community over here for the DAO too. That should go with a note there and that. October 20th, Hunt and the Smith began establishing foundation for LATAM through Hunt funding out of pocket initially. So yeah, very clear to outline here that a lot of the work that was started at the foundation for LATAM was actually not funded by any workstream in particular, but just by the kindness out of Hunt's generosity by spending Fox out of his own pocket to see good benefit for the DAO. On October 21st, this one that I put in here, we had a POAP backlog, and Peakcoin committed himself and the marketing growth to fulfilling the backlog of POAPs there. They didn't get fulfilled in that window yet, but just that's on the timeline there. October through December, the cross-community promo and relationship building, UMA, LATAM, and various TipCC supported projects. So again, kind of similar to that previous one with Crypto Royale, cross-community collaboration and bringing in contributors, as well as useful functionality and services to our DAO and our Discord. I'm not sure on the date here, but I would imagine we're maybe at the end of October, beginning of December. T. Wells, Monstrosity, Ethan, Black Dog Davis all had interviews. I'm not sure for which Workstream there, or if they were interviews for bounties or other things like that. But they all had interviews then. And there was Drake on digital promo content. I'm assuming early November, late October. November 4th, we got XDAI added to TipCC. Also, same day, Arena started content creation team and the newsletter extension, which has been super great and is still going today. LPX recognizes the huge need for help, also I'm assuming on the 4th, as ING co-leader, and Gray, I think he might have tapped Gray for a little bit. Gray was moving on to his roles with the content creation work stream. So he begins contemplating the meaning of life and happiness. Don't we all, LPX? Don't we all in this DAO? And managed to get 1 day off a week from day job for a dedicated DAO day. That is a rough schedule, sir. So sorry for all of the work that was thrust upon you with everything, and thank you for trucking through it, as you said earlier. It looks like that was probably something that was a big leader towards the decision of you tapping Hunt later, which we'll get into. November 5th is the One Hive Trivia sponsorship. November-ish, a conflict with Hunt, Giant King, Psycho, and Miss regarding CMod Workstream. But Psy wasn't actually involved yet. I don't know if that's that there's a second one that involves Psy, or if this is a misremembering of the situation, or if this is just a continuation of something. November 11th is adding one Fox to TipCC. That week we had the Tokamak Core 2 proposal and winning, and the funding and all of that. That was a big push by Hunt and Co., mostly Hunt. November 20th, LATAM was finally established and the Smith was funded. Was that funded from can someone fill in there if that was funded from a work stream or if that was an additional funding from Hunt? I'd love to know the delineation there of when LATAM finally got recognized by a work stream and when it was still coming out of pocket from one of our generous contributors.
Yeah, that was out of marketing for sure.
Okay. Cool. Marketing. Thank you. November 29th was the Reddit post. Anyone else see Fox was ranked 420 yesterday? Good timeline bullet point there. December 6th, conflict with Hunt regarding pronoun use. Toasty +1's a comment that it's a political discussion. December 7th, we asked Hunt if he wanted to lead globalization, while I believe that's LPX takes a support role in recognition of his workload and availability. Also, same day, Hunt and Toasty, probably after that conversation, talked about joining forces to bring their specializations together for a work stream to handle that globalization step down from LPX and all of the partnership and integration planning and growth strategy. And then Toasty doing branding partnerships and also a growth strategy. Some would call it the dream duo.
Yeah,
I hear, is there someone wanting to add something? Sounds like there's a hot mic.
I think Gray's
Gray.
hot micing.
Cool.
Abby, would you like to
Gray Machine, you got a hot mic. I'll just talk a little louder.
So
Thank you. Attempted to contribute to content creation on December 9th. Created and shared content turned down with little explanation and content not repurposed or used. I'm a little confused as to, it looks like the one individual was trying to join content creation and then they got shut down. We don't have to identify that individual. We can if we want to, but it looks like there was some issue there.
I believe it's a reference to the education project that's being added to the proposal that we put up.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for that context. Write that in there. Also that day we worked with content creation and education for the DAO proposal to be a part of the new stream led by Hunt and Toasty. Yeah, it looks like those two are cause and effect of each other. December 10th is the forum post for that funding of the new growth and globalization. So pretty fast action after that repurpose of that in the new work stream there from the 9th to the 10th. Looks like a whole bunch of decisions were probably made in that window right there, viewing from an outside perspective. And then no date here, created with the focus, connected to the 10th, connected with the focus of having 2 workstream leaders and 14 contributors with bounty budget to add to that number. The stream would cover the fast-growing globalization, but also include brand and DAO partnership, creation management, voice tone branding for social, primarily Twitter, include the DAO education sector, and lead to overall growth and brand recognition for the DAO. The only tool that carries over to this stream would be Twitter for marketing and growth and event planning / partnership budget lies. More on this new stream. Marketing will still have access to social Twitter as well. December 10th, major question mark, conflict with Giant Cannon Psycho. That maybe that's a separate one from the one previously. Maybe it's a connection to that and a extenuation of it. December 12th, we have a gap analysis disagreement.
I think Giant Kin and Psycho could probably speak on that, but I wouldn't label that as major at all. We're all friends, so I think it's like a misstatement, to be honest, but that's just my perception.
I'd like to leave that major and maybe put the question mark there. I'll say from an outside perspective that saw some of the fallout from that, I would say that major question mark is definitely deserving. But thank you for adding to that as well, some context. December 14th, Arena and Shocks complete the POAP backlog. So that's just a timeline I added there to show the commitment line to the completion line there. December 16th, we've got the forum post on marketing growth, just marketing funding through June 30th. On the 17th, the joint marketing and growth globalization group chat was initiated. That was intended to continue creating a data-driven marketing engine for the DAO, where efforts from across all contributors can find a team waiting to create messaging, collateral, and spread that message across the metaverse. It's data-driven, focused on driving users to points beneficial to the DAO, most immediately to V2 staking pools, but also available pools across the web where users can activate their Fox instead of looking for a time to sell. December 18th, 19th, open comment made from Hunt on forum about size of budget for marketing, leading to a conversation that publicly took place on the 20th. December 20th, open conversation that started with Hunt, Peatcoin, and Toasty around salary, included multiple people coming in and help lead to an adjustment from Pete, and also for us to sync around this retro. Sounds like that was maybe the meeting that you guys got to do a lot of that airing of grievances and team commitments there. That was yesterday, looks like. And I would maybe say part of the reason might want to rehash some of that today is because yesterday was definitely a meeting heavy filled day that I don't think the greater DAO could be on the same page with you guys there, but it's good that you guys did that.
Yeah,
Sorry?
real quick, Tyler. Shouldn't my thing for the takeaway from that is like, shouldn't we just focus on like whatever was taken from that? I mean, I can't make every single engineering thing, but all I kind of care about is like, what the solution is at the end. I'm maybe not about the discussions, every single discussion that happens. So if we all came to an agreement and it looks like the streams have been adjusted, shouldn't we just care about the like end project of that? Like, I don't think we need to necessarily like rehash every single thing in that conversation. Because it could lead to maybe somebody looking on ourselves or other people involved on that call, whereas they should really only care about the end goal, is knowing that, hey, we had a communication, this is the end goal. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. I don't know, to be totally honest with you. We're definitely in a new DAO space where finding the line between full democracy and transparency and making sure that we can have proper planning in.
I mean, it was public. It was fully transparent. I appreciate Pete and Hunt for opening it up in the public channel. And, we had lots of people that weren't even on any of the work streams join. So it was definitely public and open, the same as like we have this conversation going on right now.
I think it is interesting though, because this is what was on most people's radar as the place to come and hear about, the conflicts and what had happened and how it was going to be dealt with and handled. And so it is interesting that you guys did decide to do it yesterday instead of in this meeting. So I think, yes, we do want to hear, the outcomes. But going over this timeline, I'm hearing disagreement, conflict, and that's something I do think we should get into today, or I hope we do.
I mean, sure, but again, I'm only going to focus kind of on the takeaways. That's all we should care about at the end of the day is like, proposals been changed, what the proposal lies. Like it wasn't necessarily formed so we wouldn't have a retro. It was a kind of organic call that we just had people start to join in. And again, we were moving so quick. Both of our work streams rely on getting our proposals forward. So we necessarily couldn't wait more time just to have some of these conversations. It was just an organic conversation. I'm more than happy to like hash what came out of it, but not maybe every single little thing that happened in the conversation. But maybe somebody else will, maybe Hunt or Pete or Arena or somebody else wants to hash it out.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is I hear, Toasty, that you've got some resolve in wanting to move forward. I think that we would love to have everyone on the same page as you. And the hope is that this meeting is a way to provide that transparently and allow everyone the open space to ask the questions they would like to ask, so we can all feel that we're at that sort of Machiavellian, let's just go with the decisions that are made rather than.
So my concern here, Tyler, is like I agree with you that like I'd like to hear people's questions or whatever, but I haven't had any. I would like to hear like the community ask a question, because I've heard a lot about this too, like privately, and like it's not necessarily like a great feeling for anybody to like have to get up on stage or like publicly ask these questions that aren't necessarily like they don't feel like comfortable like approaching or like getting caught in the crossfire. Like Arena, for example, she doesn't like being caught in the crossfire. I can name that now. That's going to be like an issue that I'll bring up later, but it's not necessarily fair to some people involved in this. And I think that's what Toasty was trying to say, and I'll say it point blank, that I don't think it's necessarily like cool to do it. But if you want to, if you think it's the right thing, let's go ahead. But that's my position on the situation, and that's why we did it privately, for example, because there are like things involved here that like aren't necessarily comfortable for people. Like not everybody's like has like prepared to like get up here and like talk to you about like their questions. They just don't want to do it. They might do it in like an anonymous like way, but they're not going to do it like publicly like you're willing to, like the actual community. I'm not talking like ex-centralized foxes here, willing to get up and talk. So
Sure. So yeah, Ethan just made a great point of doing this publicly might be the best way to solve issues that haven't been resolved over many private calls already. I do want to address the thing that you guys both just said about people not maybe feeling comfortable talking about some of these things. I did just repost the Ask Anything form. This is a perfectly anonymous way to submit anything if you're feeling uncomfortable about outing yourself, about talking about a conflict. It can be brought up in a holistic way for us to talk about the conflicts and the issues that we have without creating a witch hunt. And I think that the hope here, especially since we all agreed to be open and agreed not to be right, but to be open here towards solving this, is that this public call is probably the safe space to have those where people can be met with some of the conflicts and issues without having it come off as an attack, would be my hope. So I think everyone, my intention here is that we're all here as adults to move forward with the best of intentions for the DAO, and that there's a lot of friction and conflict that came out of here, and it sounds like there's a lot of potential resolution that maybe have been made behind closed doors, but in the nature of being a DAO and being transparent, we have to think about what this means for not only your guys' workstream, but what this means for examples in the future for ShapeShift DAO itself and with other DAOs. ShapeShift is one of the DAOs that the rest of the DAO community is looking at for our governance process, for our conflict resolution, for our structure. So yeah, I definitely am not trying to kick dirt in anyone's eyes or rub salt in any wounds, and I'm not trying to hurt or offend anyone or create hurt feelings here, but I do think that in a kind of a blameless sort of situation, we do need to have a way that we can actively look at what happened, why we made the decisions, and how we could maybe do better in the future, or what we did that we need to continue to do in the future. Sorry if that was a slight monologue. Does anyone else have anything to share about the intentions of what we're doing here and what we might be going into as we go into the next phase? Okay. I don't know if GK is here. Does someone who's on the call have access to that Ask Anything form that they can repost inside the stage chat, the anonymous questions that might be asked? I think Willie Fox, if you're around,
Yep.
might be able to.
On it.
Cool. Thank you very much. And looks like we didn't finish the timeline yet. We were just a couple ones short. We 20th added KPIs in the globalization and growth workstream as requested, presented as being helpful from John. December 17th, previously, Gray Machine hands in his resignation of his full-time job, moving out of info and globalization into product and design workstream. And then on the 22nd, LPX does the same. And then this is a full deck for the information and globalization workstream that I know that the team has put a lot of hard work into, is also shared on the forum and inside the forum post. So that's that section. We're now at noon. Wow. Lots of questions here and lots of things to still go on. So we're going to move into this celebrate wins and discuss improvements. I scheduled this to go for 90 minutes. I hope we'll try and get through this as quick as we can. And we'll start the section for filling this out right now. Let's do this for the next 10 minutes. And we'll see if we need to keep going after that. Looks like some people have already started. So we'll come back at 12:10. We get a lo-fi girl playing for a couple minutes. Gonna give it just another minute or two, guys. Looks like we still got some active typing, so please feel free to add pluses to anything that you read and you agree with. And please feel free to keep adding things on both sides of the column, left and right. All right, it looks for the most part people have stopped typing, and we've got a pretty long list here. So I'm gonna start going through it, and then we will move on to the last section with action items here. If you have more that you would like to add, please try and add them at the very bottom so they don't get skipped over. All right, without further ado, these are the things that we did really well. We transitioned well from centralized marketing over to the DAO while having a cross collab with a few months of PR and emails, and there's a +1 there. Quite a few people agree that everyone on the team found their strengths and even their weaknesses over the course of 4 months. I'd agree with that as well. There was a successful pivot towards partnerships, sponsorships, and after tracking conversation took place. So it looks like after one conversation about alignment, we were able to successfully pivot over to partnerships and sponsorships with our focus. So good collaboration and work there. Hyped others up, 2 pluses to that. Yeah, definitely agree there. We were really well at empowering new contributors to come on board and support the DAO. Really interesting to see that, because I see that here, there, and I also see that there's a difficulty for getting new contributors into the DAO on the other side too, and that's one that looks like we could learn some things from what we did successfully to massage into the things we didn't do well. Community transparency, and a +1 to that. Willingness to support other community members, dedication or commitment to the DAO, working with a limited set of marketing tools, no more emails, social was a pain to get, and paid had always been near impossible. Smooth and relatively informative onboarding process to the DAO. And then these ones are more directed at the ING workstream. Creating a flexible workflow process for translation work, platform, Git, HackMD, Notepad, pick your poison. Created an awesome culture within the workstream, could really tell the globalization team cared about spreading the crypto gospel. Plus one of that, I love the way in which there's culture going on there. Team LATAM and all that stuff is really, really awesome to see and inspiring for the rest of the work streams. Zero turnover rate for all of our GCA nominees. Really, really awesome there too. Experimentation with new content types with good feedback. We learned a great deal, everything about the DAO. Hopping in and being a contributor first and then learning about it second is a great way to do it. Created visually appealing content to tackle difficult and confusing topics for new users via video content. Very well positioned for an even faster growth for next term because of the work put into the infrastructure and workflow tools, and success in hiring contributors. That's probably one that I can remove and add another plus to the one up here. Where was that? Oh, you know what? I won't do that because it might have been just for ING by themselves. All right. Cool. And now we're going to take a look at the things we could have done better. Slightly more. These will be the ones that we'll probably have discussion topics on, and I'm going to be going by the highest pluses for what we're going to be talking about in just a couple minutes. So making it easier for contributors to contribute. Sounds like it was hard to get people in the door, and a couple of people agreed with that. Ease in the process of documentation while trying to ask a marketing leader for funding for an idea pitch that is deemed valid by others in the work stream. So sounds like from the bottom up, there was some issues getting approval in a timely manner that would be helpful for the DAO from workstream leaders. Not pressure contributors to pay out of pocket and to have to then ask for compensation for already spent funds out of pocket. Sounds like just budgeting in general was something that was maybe a misguided thing here and needs to be addressed and fully compensated for in ways that work streams have been funded by personal contributors. Social media posts, +++3. Quality could be better and more aligned with the DAO values. A lot of people agree with that. Communication, inter work stream, cross community work stream, and community. Sounds like some difficulties in general in just keeping everyone up to date and communicating what's going on. Community transparency, I would say, is probably in that same boat. Willingness to support other community members and being available to collaborate and work with other work streams, I think are pretty closely aligned, and I got a whole bunch of pluses on one of them and another +1 on the other one. So I think that's probably something we're going to want to talk about. Conflict identification, expression, and resolution with a +1 there. I know that I've been tertiarily involved in some conflict issues and seen that maybe we could have had some better conflict resolution. Maybe in general, though, we need as a DAO to have some structure around what conflict resolution looks like in this DAO. So maybe that's an action item will come from it. Pete Coin could have been better about delivering the POAPs in a more timely manner. Appreciate that, Pete. That following the sword on that one. Pete Coin could have been better about communicating more proactively with workstream members about efforts he was spearheading. It directly led to conflict over the gap analysis. Professionalism in the way we talk to others and the way we handle conflict. This is a multi-million-dollar business, and even if you work at home in your boxers, we should be confident that the leaders of the communication work streams can effectively communicate with one another. ++++++1. So that's probably the biggest pluses we've had there, and kind of goes alongside the being available to collaborate and work with others. And be transparent about it. Hunt and Toasty often taking public discussions into private DMs. That looks like a +1, maybe a +2. Toning down rhetoric in DMs, and that's a +1. lost social credentials, relaunching Facebook, Instagram, Facebook. Sounds like maybe this was something that we did bad just from the transition from the DAO and our password keeping. To get some codified values and policies to inform how we communicate and engage with each other, like the rules when you join our Discord server, but applicable to a wider range of exchanges. This sounds like maybe an action item more so than something that we did wrong, but it sounds like it addresses a couple of things that we did wrong there. We need to clean up Twitter copyright. It often looks messy compared to other 100K plus crypto accounts, and a couple of plus ones there. So maybe something more about like that voice that I know is voice guide that was talked about in a previous meeting. A lack of communication regarding marketing initiatives from global and where we are in terms of timeline of developments. Sounds like that's both a issue of communication with the work streams in question, and also an issue of communication from the DAO to these work streams in an organized manner. And we can all do some better things about that, I think, maybe. How do we dumb down social posts without being condescending? Difficulties in hiring contributors. A bottleneck with the English content output. Improve communications with the DAO and work on overcoming time zone difficulties. That sounds like some that was previously stated, but also maybe an issue we're blind to around being insensitive to people's times and when we work. Disappointing results in Asia and Russia, assuming that cultural and economic differences were a factor. Information part of IG lagging behind. Presenting and expressing inclusivity, H. And Hunt, Toasty, and Pete working together. And there's 3 plus 1s there. So give me a second to read what's going on in the stage chat as well and see if there's anything that I'm missing. I did try and add the best that I could of the anonymous questions that were asked there. A lot of those kind of have been addressed and other things there, so I put plus 1s where I could and then added the rest. Doesn't look like there's anything else people are saying in the stage chat that needs to be added on top of this. I'm talking about the issues with Instagram as well. So now we're gonna open up this time for the floor for everyone to talk, but we're gonna take it on one item at a time. And our hope here is we can hash out some things if we need to, but the real goal of bringing up these individual items is to come up with how do we solve this collectively together. And so that's where it might lead into what I said at the very beginning, where some of these decisions might have already been made in a previous call. So I would love for us to be able to inform the rest of the community if some of these things have working solutions in them, and also provide space for the community to address them as well. So and looking at all of the pluses, I think maybe the first one we want to start with is professionalism. That's the one that got the most pluses. So I would love to open the floor for people, whoever, maybe if someone who feels very strongly about talking about this with a solution in mind, or the person who posted it, that'll be the first topic of conversation, which is the one that I've got on the screen: professionalism and the way we talk to others and the way we handle conflict. Floor is open. Does anyone have any suggestions or anything they'd like to get the ball started here? I can start the conversation if no one else wants to break the ice.
I think there was a question from the Ask Anything form as well that said, how will Workstream leaders hunt specifically? Oh, wait, sorry, that was the wrong one. In my opinion, Workstream leaders should be held to higher standard as they set the tone for their work streams. How will Peatcoin, Hunt, and Toasty work together to ensure the communication between them is productive? And how will disputes be solved? So I think that goes with this point, and I thought that was a really nice question. So I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I can kick it off from my side and say an example of us working together was having a public call yesterday and then solving a conflict publicly and going right over to our marketing open office hours call where we had more questions than answered. So we've shown we can still work together. We can get stuff out the door. there's no problems. I don't think, and I'll let Pete chime in as well if he has, any issues with us collaborating back and forth. But at this point in time, I don't think we're gonna have any problems working together.
I personally feel like a lot of times, like the collaborations have been fluffed up like that. And I do think that like I definitely can foresee conflict coming up in the future, based off like where we are foundationally right now between work streams.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to hear that discussion if, being as the work stream leader on the one that we're proposing, and I would love to hear Pete chime in to think if we can work together, but I honestly don't see that being an issue from my side. So I would love Pete to chime in and say if he thinks it's going to be an issue going forward.
Just as part of the one initial question, the professionalism and how do we talk to others and handle conflict. I think the challenge that we face in a DAO where we don't really per se know each other. We are building the trust between each others now. We all came in to the DAO from different areas. I mean, there is some trust that's built up between those who have worked with each other in the past, and that may also bring relationships that is brought from the past, whether there was conflict there or whatever could have been existing. But I think that what we really have to try to do now, which is really a hard thing in a DAO working through Discord, where it is informal to some extent, is try to ensure that communication is broadly available. Transparency is there where it needs to be, and that we can do the best to remove those friction points and help build up others so that the trust can form maybe a little bit better within community members and the working relationships and that's a hard thing. I don't know if there's directly one solution, but I definitely think that having discussions like this and I kind of I don't like that this is I know this is a retro on marketing and growth and the split and so forth, but I do think that these are conversations for all work streams and for all community situations. And I hate to think that this is just picking up one situation, but I do think that we definitely have a lot, to grow, and this is just starting. So I definitely would like to see conversation and communication continue towards these ends.
Two solutions that I've seen proposed, one here in the stage chat just now, and then one that was presented privately in leadership earlier. In the stage chat, there's a suggestion that maybe all of the work stream leaders attend some kind of leadership training, conflict resolution. I, for one, think that's a great idea and did that previously at centralized ShapeShift, but would not be opposed to jumping into another one. It's always great practice to learn how to have shared vocabulary. And also, Diggy had mentioned that there is a team agreement about how to interface and engage with people that product has, and it might be good to maybe expand and extrapolate that for all work streams. Diggy, I don't know if you have a quick elevator pitch on that, guidelines that you guys have, if you're available or you're sick.
Yeah, it's just a team agreement that we all agree and abide by. It just has more like high level things like expectations around meetings, expectations that we have of each other. For example, if we think that somebody's doing something and we maybe assume that their intent is potentially malicious or something, that we give each other the benefit of the doubt and have a conversation with each other before we go down the wrong rabbit hole. But I'm happy to share that with the community. I think it's on Notion, so I can definitely post a link to that in the stage chat.
Thank you, Diggy. Yeah, I would love to have that shared so more eyes can be on that. Is there any other creative solutions people have for addressing the professionalism in conflict management that we should be presenting to the group?
I don't mind jumping in and saying that it's something that I have already started taking classes on. It's something that I foresaw coming down the pike. And I don't want to shirk any of the responsibility that I had in causing some of these scenarios. I think that's something that never was said really resonated with me, in that there is that I think that we should that there hasn't been enough done to endeavor to see this as a professional endeavor. I have tried to operate that we are, a business, and that everybody needs to go home at night and feel good about the work that they put in during the day, and not to feel like the work follows them home due to personal business coming into it. I myself don't mind admitting that I have found myself struggling with that at times. I do find that sometimes it goes past the personal, or goes past the professional, and things do get personal. I do not foresee there being an issue moving forward between the two work streams. I think that there is a clear delineation between the two work streams, and that there is a clear, at least in my mind, a clear need to separate the efforts and KPIs. But I will say that I have found it difficult, because I have sometimes found that things are delivered in a more personal way than I felt it may have been, and I myself may have done that as well, and I apologize to everybody that I did that to as well. But it's we're all trying to work to the betterment of people, and I find myself sort of embarrassed and wanting the best for ShapeShift and being long Fox. I'm finding myself motivated to try to improve, but also that I think that a lot of the things brought up here are important and should be addressed, and I'm happy to own my part and address them on my side as well.
Thank you very much, Pete, for your candidness and that, and your acceptance of responsibility, and your half of conflicts in this. So far, I've got 2 notes down for action items of team agreements for all work streams and work stream leaders attending leadership workshops. I did see a comment in the stage chat that said potentially like an HR work stream, or someone who's independent who's able to help make everyone more efficient. There's been some discussion around things like that previously, and I know we have someone working at the foundation niche who used to do that for centralized ShapeShift. HR and DAO is a spicy topic, and maybe probably not best for this call. I don't know if I want to open up that can of worms right now, but I do think it is a good suggestion for us to maybe talk about later.
Hey, Tyler. One thing I just want to add to this general discussion, I didn't put it in any of these docs, but it's something I've done with a lot of teams historically, ShapeShift and otherwise. And I think it's just a good thing. Something I've seen among some work streams, mostly working well, and I think even mostly, I've been actually really impressed with the marketing and growth work stream over the last few months, especially as new contributors have come on. But one thing that I think sometimes leads to some of the miscommunications and conflict is simply just assumptions about intent. This is not trying to single out any particular person, because I've seen this happen with many people and across many different types of things over time. But sometimes someone will see someone do something, or they will do something that they don't like, and there will be a lot of assumptions thrown out around, or assumptions that are implicit around intent. And one of the best pieces of advice I can give to everyone, no matter what your work stream is, it's a good thing to go over if you do team agreements, is basically just try to make a commitment to basically giving benefit of the doubt. Meaning that try to assume that people's intents are good, even if you don't understand them at the time. And often that may mean that you need to follow up, you need to have a voice call, or something where you can get better understanding of where they're coming from. But generally you should try to assume everyone is working towards the same goals, everyone has a good intent. They might have a different perspective on how to achieve those goals. They might have a different perspective on how to accomplish things. But generally, if you just assume their intent is probably good, even if I don't understand it, a lot of conflict can be avoided, or at least it'll force you to talk with people and figure out where they're coming from. But I've definitely seen some things snowball a little bit, and it usually starts with someone assuming that someone's intent is not good. So my best advice, and this doesn't just go for marketing and growth, work streams and globalization or anything we're talking about today. It goes for all work streams, and especially cross work stream collaboration. Try to always assume the best intent on behalf of people. Give people a chance to explain themselves. Get on them with a voice call, something where it can't be lost. Some people are typing in text about, things can be lost in writing, and that's absolutely true because you lose tone of voice and stuff. Do everything you can to assume good intent on those you're working with, even if you don't understand it. Give that benefit of the doubt. So much good can come from that. That's it.
Hey, Tyler, is it all right can I ask a question here?
100%.
So I understand. I understand there's conflict between Pete, Toasty, and Hunt. Is that true that there's been or multiple instances of conflict between the three of you in the past? I'm hearing that things are good now. Don't get me wrong, and you can work together. But there was conflict in the past, correct?
Yes, I think that's accurate.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. I would say that with conflicts on any streams, any working professional relationship, any any relationship in general. So I would say there's been conflicts in the past, but it seems like over the past few days, few weeks, even few months, from early conversation to conflicts, that we've kind of worked through all of them.
So my question is that the efforts of the partnerships and all that moving over into the global, out of marketing into the globalization workstream, do you think that would have happened if the conflicts were not there, right? Is this moving over, this shuffling of where efforts take place under which workstream, did that happen because of the conflict?
No, I would have.
I think I weighed into some of the decisions that we made around it. But at the same time, I think just as talking, when Hunt and I came to the realization of this, like seeing this size and the amount that we wanted to build out, and knowing our skill sets and like how we personally, work with leaders in general, not necessarily just Peatcoin, just like leaders in general, like, and how we responded to what kind of structure we were looking at, it kind of led to this decision as well. So while some of the conflicts maybe played a part in it, a lot of it was just structured around like how we both just work, differently, and like how we wanted to kind of work together as leaders.
And I personally would have moved anyway. When LPX reached out to me, I was gonna have to help them anyway, and like LATAM is like my priority at the end of the day. So that was really my inspiration to it. Like I wouldn't have gone over to Pete's workstream more than likely just to help out LPX and like the other people that asked me to help them. So that was my motivation at the end of the day. I would have definitely chosen to do that over being in like the marketing work stream. So
Okay, and that's what happened on December 7th, right? That's when LPX asked if you would lead globalization.
Yeah, he DM'd me one morning and he was like, "Hey, listen, like I'm humbly asking you to like help me out." And I was like, "Listen, like don't worry, man. I'm game." So that's how it started.
Yeah, and to give a little bit more context as well, Josh, too, that so when Hunt and I started talking about it a little bit too, Pete and I actually had this conversation quite a bit, looking to put me into the more of like the partnerships role. A lot of the goals and the KPIs are kind of more nebulous. Like it's sometimes hard to put like a metric driven thing on there. So it almost made a little bit of logical sense for, to take that load on my back in case I have to go back to the community and not have a bullet point of like, hey, we signed X amount of partnerships. Some of the KPIs around it necessarily can't be tied 100% to a number. So in my eyes, it almost made sense like, hey, let me take all of the flack on my back just in case something does go wrong. So it doesn't look bad on the marketing work stream if we don't hit those goals or anything. So that kind of weighed into my decision as well of like why we should like team up and, you know, make this a new stream.
And those conversations with Pete, those were like before December 7th?
Yeah, these were, God, yeah, we introduced my quote unquote like new title a couple weeks. I think it started December 1st was like my new title within the marketing growth work stream. So Pete and I had this conversation before that. So it was in November around like Thanksgiving time when we're like, hey, maybe you should, you know, be doing branding partnerships, but like some of the goals are going to be more nebulous. You can't really tie them to like engagement rate increases. And, you know, you can obviously say, hey, let's get X amount of partnerships, but what if you bring in a partnership that, you know, generates millions of dollars of revenue versus like 10 that generate $1,000 of revenue? So it was a more nebulous goal thing. And at the end of the day, if like, you know, the DAO's not happy with not having a goal, I'd rather take that on my back instead of being like, oh, the marketing work stream is failing at doing this. Now it's,
yeah, I gotcha.
Toasty is failing as a leader to do this. That's what kind of so it was all the way from back in November that led to this.
What was that? What is the new title? You said December 1st. What is that new title?
It was like director of like partnerships and branding. I think I'll have to look over it again. Again, it's so hard to come up with titles here sometimes. It's everybody just kind of wants to contribute at the end of the day. We know our strong suits and stuff. And that's why I understand the growth and globalization name is already a little tricky, but we couldn't give it a six bucket long name. So.
And so then, like, curious, why not like partnerships and branding be its own work stream?
I mean, it could, but I also like having Hunt and I've worked together. Like Hunt has a background in bringing some of these partnerships in, then, you know, starting up a lot of these partnership channels. So he has that skill set and background. So like, even though he's going to be focusing a lot on globalization, he's still going to be helping with a lot of these partnership deals. It's kind of like cross-team collaboration. Like it just felt like a good natural fit. And then like with the education being brought in, like those tools are going to be super beneficial when we start making partnerships or bringing people into the channel. They have like resources and then when we, you know, are ready to sign a partnership or ready to kick this off, that's when we're going to lean on Pete and the marketing work stream of like, hey, here's this new partnership. You guys run all the campaigns, do all the PR, like all that kind of stuff. This is like what we set up for you. It's kind of taking that step away from like marketing and giving them a complete partnership that they can run with and not be like up in the air of what to do.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
And then I just want to hit on Tyler's real quick too, because that's kind of like, was there ever any thought of these work streams just being one for efficiency and collaboration? As we started growing more and more and more, like I have a hard time saying like one person can be like in charge of, you know, we're already 14 contributors for this, and Hunt and I really wanted to try this co-collaboration thing as co-leaders. So to answer your question, Tyler, like as it keeps growing, it necessarily doesn't need to live under like a hierarchical structure. And I think it's okay to kind of repivot some of these work streams and just see where it works best for the community. They were already two work streams. Like I kind of want to lay that out and make that very clear for this whole group here. We're not we're not making a new work stream from scratch. Globalization already existed. It's rebranding globalization. We should just call it a rebranding. Maybe that would help people wrap their minds around it. Like we keep saying splitting all this kind of stuff. It's really like Hunt taking over globalization and me moving my job over to a new work stream, or just moving myself. Don't even say my job. Like that job could still live in marketing if it wants to, just moving myself over to a new work stream.
I think that's where, and that right there is where and why we're having this conversation, because it is something that is being changed quite heavily from what was proposed and passed to the community. And so I definitely appreciate the context in all of this, but I do think that there is a difference, that it's not just a rebranding, but the marketing itself that was passed and proposed upon its renewal will look differently than it did previously.
I mean, I'm just one person on the stream. So like, it's kind of like, you know, if you're saying that I was doing all of the marketing work and it's causing like, or at least 50% of it, which is not the case, then it would be like a hard fork or something. We're just taking one segment from my job over to this new work stream and kind of expanding on it. And then it also makes it more palpable from the community's point of view of like, if not, like the marketing workstream budget is going to start getting bigger and bigger, and maybe the community has a harder time like voting on something that's, you know, $750,000 plus like of funding this marketing work stream. Whereas if we have two smaller streams with smaller budgets, it makes it a little bit easier for the community to vote on it, in my opinion. I'm thinking of it optically towards the community as well. Like, are people more likely to bat an eye and like really dive in and think hard when it's, you know, a couple $100,000 versus like close to $1 million? I think it gets scrutinized more and people pick it apart. It just makes sense to, in my opinion, to have like these smaller work streams set up that kind of all collaborate together. Kind of the direction I'm hoping a lot of the DAO goes. And when, again, most of us trying to do this, the reason Hunt and I are trying to do this is a lot of it is experimentation, kind of seeing which direction we could take a DAO. Like, we have a lot of ideas. We want to see like smaller work streams. We want to see like some pay stuff change for international users. Like, we have a lot of good ideas, and us getting into the leadership role, like, just lets us voice that to the rest of the leaders a little bit easier as well.
Appreciate all that context. We definitely have blown way past our time and kind of blown out the framework of this a little bit, but I think we're getting to the meat of the conversation we'd like to have. Would everyone here like me to move on to another high bullet point here? Do we feel pretty confident in our resolution around professionalism and Toasty and Hunt and Pete collaborating together?
I mean, I'm hearing pretty clearly from all three of them that they can work together, and there's been some conflict, and they feel like they've worked through it. And I don't have any reason not to believe them. So I think we can.
Thank you for adding that. Yep, I'm in agreement with you there. Looking at these next ones, I see one with a whole bunch of pluses about social media posts. Quality could be better and more aligned with DAO values. Maybe we should spend a minute or two on that one. I know there was some suggestions about potentially dumbing it down without being condescending. I don't know if that's in the same conversation or if that's a different one, but would love to see.
I'd love to hit on that one, Tyler, actually. So this was actually one of the takeaways from, I think Diggy proposed it kind of yesterday during our office hours, is us working, and part of this new stream would be working on the voice branding guide. So kind of really establishing, and this is taking feedback from the community like this note right here, and really kind of deciding what the DAO sounds like. When I say sounds like, what it sounds like to partnerships, what it sounds like on Twitter, what it sounds like on Instagram, what it sounds like on all these social things, and then also using product, you know, to pitch what it's going to look like visually and the branding stylization. So I think that answers the question a little bit. Is like, I'm going to take this as feedback as we start establishing what the voice of the DAO could be. We'll have more open communication with the community if they think we need to possibly dumb it down a little bit. Maybe I can explain a little bit more in like an open forum one day about like some of the limitations that we do have with our voice. Like, I can't talk about, you know, price as much as we'd like to. There's a lot of legal like loopholes we have to jump through in social and branding. But one of our big takeaways that we're trying to do is a voice guide for the community and work with all the community like work streams to like establish that. Hope that answers the question a little bit. Like,
yep, I've got you now down for cleanup and focus on voice and social media and create a voice guide as one of the action items if you feel comfortable with that.
I'm going to put it in the proposal as well. I'll actually put it as a line item in our proposal. Exactly what you just said.
Sweet. I love that. And then we can make that short and sweet, unless anyone has a question or has some input they think that Toasty should know before he does it on his own. All right. One of the other things that I saw was a whole bunch of pluses was being available to collaborate and work with other work streams. I think that'll probably be more, I guess now at this point, we're talking more about how growth and marketing can work with the other work streams, not just each other. I know from my own experience, I had a difficulty finding time. I was always kind of shirked to the side and told heads down or not enough time or things are too busy for me now, maybe next week. I would love to find a way to, if we even have to do like take a number, build some tickets, I would be interested in figuring out a way to be a little more available from both sides. Any suggestions or ideas on this one? Cool. If we don't have any, I think we'll take this on as operations and a means to look at the DAO more holistically about cross workstream collaboration and try and find better ways to improve things incrementally. If no one has any other ideas.
Yeah, I would love to help collaborate on that. I'm sure that I was the cause of some of that, and it is true that things just, keep popping up. And we were trying to sort of build the track in front of the train as the train was, running. And I'm sure I know I did on the POAP stuff, and I'm sure I dropped the ball on stuff like that. And I think that there is there's definitely room for there to be a greater discussion, because I think that's just going to be natural in the DAO world. I think that I heard John say it on the previous retro, which is something that I agreed with, is that, we don't want to be the kind of DAO that, wants to turn away people from making their own bounties or anything like that. And I think that there's and if we want to have that flexibility, we will always run into that. And I think that this is something that if we can solve, it can be an example for other DAOs and just for the DAO here in general, because I think that it's something that we all, at least it to me feels kind of obvious in hindsight, but tough to see in the middle, that like decentralization does create, inefficiencies in a way where people are working on different things at the same time in possibly different directions, and there's a shared resource or there's a shared need. And I would love to help collaborate on a better solution for that could be standardized and implemented, because it could be, it could end up being a force multiplier for the DAO writ large.
I agree with that. I'm happy to put myself as a co-owner on that action item as well. So I've got potential discussion on strengthening workstream collaboration, and maybe that's even a full community call we have after the holidays about some best practices we could lean into and support each other. Josh, I know you've got a lot of skills in this kind of thing. Is that something I can put your name down as well to be involved with?
Yes, for sure.
Cool. And then could we also get someone from the growth side of this, either Hunter Toasty, to be kind of co-leading this with us?
I'm available.
Sweet. Cool. Trying to be super respectful of time. I think this is a very, very helpful and engaging conversation, though, too. So kind of keep pushing through and want to give respect to all of the ideas that people have had. And we'll have to close this out at some point here real quickly. Is there anything on this list that someone feels we haven't addressed yet they'd like to bring up to the stage? I think that might be a better way to go about it than me going line item at a time now that we're at this point of the call.
Hey, Tyler, I just want to mention, I do want to discuss it with the leadership team first, but I think that I can modify this process to be able to do some async collaboration with everybody on further defining or laying out some like policies and values and stuff like that to help guide all of us going forward. So I'm hopeful, but I don't want to go through it with a whole bunch of people right now. I'd rather discuss with a smaller group first, and then maybe bring it to the community call later this week.
I love that. Putting you down as further define policies and guidelines.
Sounds good.
Just for anyone.
Tyler, we're kind of losing you, or at least you're cutting in and out on my speakers.
Yeah, mine too.
And you're like totally gone now.
Hey, Josh, I know that request was made for like the leadership council to kind of drive that conversation initially, to kind of get the thoughts down and make the initial talking points and stuff. Is it possible that maybe the community doesn't like participate, but maybe listens in just to have a better understanding of the direction you're going?
Yeah, all I'm going to do is talk about the process. The process would include feedback from everybody. So it's not like I didn't what I don't want, and I don't think anybody wants, is for a leadership team to say, "Hey, everybody, here's our values, here's our like rules for conduct or whatever." Right? That's
Right.
I don't see how that could be successful. So all I want to do is brainstorm about the process to do it.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for asking that question so I could be clear about that.
No problem. I see Tyler said he has to pass the DJ to someone else. Do you want to take that up, Josh? I know you're pretty good at like following through this stuff. Or
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, we were wrapping up anyway, right? We were right at the end. We have 5 action items here, and we're 20 minutes over as it is. So I'll just end by, well, does anybody have any final questions about anything?
Not final questions, but I would love to, just take like 30 seconds and kind of just say, after this like retro and stuff, and the takeaway yesterday as well is, Josh, I know you came up on our marketing office hours stage, and we kind of talked a little bit about this, but since having an open conversation yesterday as well, there's been a lot of takeaways for both our proposal, but also Pete replied to a couple people in his forum post, and made some changes to his budget that it's getting, it seems like, a lot of support and stuff as well. So like, I just say the overall takeaway that like, while there has been, I think this is addressing addressing Mrs. Kind of point on there, while there has been conflicts, we are still working together. And the meetings that we had yesterday, and kind of the takeaway, and seeing likes on each of our forum posts, and see the direction that Pete's taking the marketing work stream, and seeing like the ability we've had working with like the education sector on our work stream, just seems like we're just completely moving forward full steam ahead. Yes, there was conflicts, but it seems like we all kind of like resolved them as a DAO, and as even as individuals. So that's kind of just my takeaway overall for the retro, and like my like finishing remarks is, I look forward to collaborating with every single work stream. I look forward to collaborating with the marketing work stream. I look forward to like, Pete's gets passed, working with him again, and if ours gets passed, working with all of you. So kind of my closing remarks on this.
Appreciate that, Toasty. Closing remarks from anyone else?
Yeah, I can echo that. I think that it makes a lot of sense to have discrete work streams. I think that they are distinct enough, and they have clear enough goals. And ultimately, I am bullish on the fact that if both accomplish their goals, then the DAO as a whole wins. And ultimately, that's all I want, is for the DAO to be the best DAO ever, and to be the best team ever. So I'm pretty excited for that.
Thanks, Bitcoin. All right. Anybody else have any final question or comment?
I could just say too, also, if there's any other questions that maybe we didn't address in here, or didn't see in the stage chat, feel free to like, I think marketing public chat is probably the best one, and you can tag myself, Hunt, you can tag Pete in there, so we can just keep it open and public. But that's probably the best place to reach us directly with some more questions around this. We all are in that channel, we can all see it, and the whole like the public Discord can see it as well.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Please take a look at the proposals again after the modifications, and let's continue the discussion on the forum. If needed, we can have time on the weekly governance call on Thursday to discuss things further, at least the specifics about each of the proposals. So thank you, everybody, and hope you all have a good day.